The galaxy had always been a vast and mysterious place, filled with wonders and dangers that most people could only dream of. For centuries, the different species of the galaxy lived under an uneasy peace, guided by the coalition of sentient species. This group was made up of representatives from various alien races, all working together to keep things stable. But lately, something strange had started to happen. Strange signals were being picked up by listening stations across the stars, messages that no one could understand. These signals came from deep space, far beyond any area explored before. They carried a tone that sent shivers down the spines of those who heard them. It wasn't just noise. It felt like a warning. On Earth, Captain Daniel Carter sat in his office aboard the Eclipse *, a sleek spaceship designed for long missions into uncharted territory. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling while he thought about the orders he had received earlier that day. The Coalition wanted answers, and they were sending humanity's best ship and crew to find them. Daniel didn't know what to expect, but he knew one thing. This mission would change everything. He sighed and stood up, walking over to the window to look out at the endless expanse of space. The view never got old, even after all these years. "Captain," a voice called from behind him. It was Lieutenant Laura Hayes, his second in command. She stepped into the room, her expression serious. "We've finished running diagnostics on the engines and weapons systems. Everything checks out." Daniel nodded. "Good work, Laura. How's the rest of the crew holding up?" She hesitated for a moment before answering. "They're nervous, sir. We don't know what we're heading into. Some of the newer recruits are asking questions I don't have answers to." Daniel turned to face her fully, his blue eyes steady. "That's why we're going out there. To get those answers. Whatever's causing those signals, it's big. Bigger than anything we've dealt with before. But we'll handle it, just like we always do." Laura crossed her arms, her brow furrowing. "And if we can't? What then? Sir, forgive me for saying this, but jumping into unknown space without more information feels reckless." "I hear you," Daniel said, his voice calm but firm. "But sometimes recklessness is the only option left. If we wait too long, someone else might act first, and not in a way that benefits us, or anyone else, for that matter." Laura opened her mouth to argue but stopped herself. Instead, she gave a small nod. "Understood, Captain. I'll make sure everyone's ready to go." As she left the room, Daniel returned to the window, his mind racing. Laura wasn't wrong to be concerned. This mission was risky, and the stakes were higher than ever. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were meant to be here, now, at this exact moment. Maybe it was fate, or maybe it was just human curiosity dragging them forward. Either way, he knew there was no turning back. Later that evening, the entire crew gathered in the main briefing room. Daniel stood at the front, addressing the group. "Listen up, everyone. Tomorrow, we leave Earth behind and head straight into uncharted territory. Our goal is simple: figure out where those signals are coming from and why. We don't know what we'll find out there, but whatever it is, we need to stay sharp, stay focused, and above all else, trust each other." He paused, letting his words sink in. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the ship's systems. Everyone seemed to be holding their breath, waiting for what came next. "We're not just representing humanity on this mission," Daniel continued. "We're representing every living being in the galaxy. The Coalition is counting on us to bring back answers, so let's give them something worth hearing." When the meeting ended, the crew dispersed, each person lost in their own thoughts. Laura stayed behind, watching as Daniel packed up his notes. "You really believe we can pull this off, don't you?" she asked softly. Daniel glanced at her, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I have to. If I didn't, none of this would be worth it." That night, as the Eclipse prepared for departure, the mood aboard the ship was tense but determined. Engineers double-checked every system, making sure nothing would fail during the journey. Scientists pored over data, trying to piece together anything useful from the mysterious signals. Even the medical staff seemed unusually busy, stocking supplies and reviewing emergency protocols. Everyone had a role to play, and no one wanted to let the others down. At dawn, the Eclipse launched from Earth's orbit, leaving the planet behind as it soared toward the edge of known space. From the cockpit, Daniel watched as the blue-green orb shrank into the distance. Beside him, Laura gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. The mission had begun, and now all they could do was move forward. Hours passed, and the ship entered a region of space rarely traveled by humans. Stars twinkled faintly in the distance, and the emptiness stretched on forever. It was beautiful, yet unsettling. As they approached the source of the signals, the tension on board grew thicker. Finally, the scanners picked up something, a massive structure floating in the void. It looked like a derelict station, abandoned and forgotten. "Is that it?" Laura whispered, her voice barely audible. Daniel narrowed his eyes, studying the image on the screen. "Could be. Let's take it slow. We don't know what's waiting for us." The Eclipse moved closer, its engines humming softly. Every member of the crew held their breath, unsure of what they would discover. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would test their courage, their loyalty, and their very understanding of the universe. As the Eclipse approached the derelict station, the crew worked quickly to gather as much information as possible. The structure floated silently in the void, its surface scarred by time and exposure to the harsh conditions of deep space. It was enormous, easily larger than any human-made station, and its design was unlike anything they had ever seen. Strange symbols were etched into its metallic hull, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the view screen as the ship drew closer. "Scanners aren't picking up any life signs," Lieutenant Laura Hayes reported from her station. "But there's definitely power running through parts of it. Some systems are still active." Daniel nodded. "Could be automated defenses. Stay alert. We don't know what we're dealing with here." The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone moved cautiously, their movements deliberate as they prepared to send a team over to investigate. Dr. Emily Parker, the ship's chief scientist, joined them on the bridge, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. "If this station has been here for centuries, it could hold answers about those signals, and maybe even who or what sent them," she said. "Or it could be a trap," Laura muttered under her breath, earning a glance from Daniel. He didn't disagree, but they couldn't turn back now. Not when they were so close to finding something that might explain the strange disturbances rippling through the galaxy. A small team was assembled for the mission. Daniel, Laura, Emily, and 2 engineers, Jack Monroe and Sarah Bennett. They suited up in their protective gear and boarded a shuttle that would take them to the station. As they left the safety of the Eclipse, the vastness of space surrounded them, cold and indifferent. The station loomed ahead, its jagged edges casting long shadows against the distant stars. When they docked, the airlock hissed open, revealing a dark corridor beyond. The team stepped inside, their helmet lights cutting through the gloom. The walls were covered in the same glowing symbols they had seen outside, pulsing faintly as if alive. Every step echoed loudly in the silence, making the hairs on the back of their necks stand up. "This place gives me the creeps," Sarah whispered, clutching her scanner tightly. "It feels wrong." Emily frowned, examining one of the symbols closely. "These markings, they're not random. There's some kind of language. I've never seen anything like it before." Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them trembled slightly. The lights flickered, and a low hum filled the air. "What was that?" Jack asked, looking around nervously. "Let's keep moving," Daniel said firmly. "Stay close and watch your backs." They pressed on, following the corridor deeper into the station. Along the way, they found rooms filled with alien technology, Machines that hummed softly, displays showing patterns of light and color, and devices whose purpose they couldn't begin to guess. Emily's eyes widened as she examined one of the consoles. "This is incredible," she breathed. "Whoever built this had knowledge far beyond ours. If we can figure out how to use it, we might be able to decode the signals." But their exploration was cut short when they entered a large chamber at the heart of the station. In the center of the room was a massive sphere, hovering above the floor and rotating slowly. Its surface shimmered with shifting colors, and it emitted a faint otherworldly glow. The team stared at it in awe, unsure of what they were looking at. "What is that thing?" Laura asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Daniel admitted, "but I have a feeling it's important." As if in response to their presence, the sphere began to pulse more brightly. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the floor and into their bones. Suddenly, the walls around them lit up with streams of data, flowing like rivers of light. Emily rushed to one of the panels, her fingers flying over the controls as she tried to make sense of the information. "It's coordinates," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "This thing is transmitting locations, places scattered across the galaxy." Before she could say more, alarms blared throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed, bathing the room in an ominous glow. "We triggered something," Jack said, backing away from the sphere. "We need to get out of here, now." Daniel grabbed Emily's arm gently but firmly. "We've got what we came for. Let's go." They turned to leave, but the corridors they had come through were no longer empty. Shadowy figures emerged from the darkness, humanoid but clearly not human. Their skin was pale and translucent, their eyes glowing with the same blue light as the symbols on the walls. They moved silently, surrounding the team without saying a word. "Who are you?" Daniel demanded, raising his weapon cautiously. The figures didn't respond. Instead, they raised their hands, and a surge of energy shot toward the group. The impact knocked them off their feet, sending sparks flying from nearby machinery. "Fall back," Daniel shouted, firing his weapon at the nearest figure. The energy blast hit its mark, causing the creature to stagger but not fall. It let out a guttural sound, almost like a growl, and charged forward. The team fought their way through the station, dodging attacks and returning fire whenever they could. The creatures were relentless, overwhelming in number and strength. Jack took a hit to his shoulder, forcing Sarah to drag him along as they retreated. Emily clutched the data pad containing the coordinates tightly, determined not to lose it. Finally, they reached the shuttle bay, where the rest of the crew waited anxiously. "Get us out of here," Daniel yelled as they scrambled aboard. The shuttle launched just as the station's defenses activated, beams of energy lashing out at them. The pilot maneuvered skillfully, narrowly avoiding destruction as they raced back to the Eclipse *. Once aboard the ship, the crew regrouped, battered but alive. Daniel looked at Emily, who was still holding the datapad. "Did we get enough to figure out what's going on?" She nodded, though her hands were shaking. "I think so. But Captain, whatever we just saw, it's only the beginning." Outside the ship, the station exploded in a burst of light, collapsing into itself as if it had fulfilled its purpose. The crew watched in stunned silence, knowing they had escaped death by a hair's breadth. And somewhere in the depths of space, the mysterious signal continued to pulse, calling out to anyone who would listen. For now, they had survived. But the questions remained, unanswered and growing louder with each passing moment. Back aboard the Eclipse *, the crew worked tirelessly to make sense of the data Emily had recovered from the derelict station. The ship's engines hummed softly as it drifted through the cold expanse of space, far enough from the destroyed station to avoid any lingering threats. But no one was celebrating their narrow escape. The encounter with the shadowy figures and the mysterious sphere had left everyone shaken. It was clear now that they were dealing with something far beyond their understanding. Emily sat in the science lab, her eyes glued to the screen as lines of alien code scrolled past. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, trying to decode the patterns and symbols she had copied during their brief time on the station. Beside her, Sarah Bennett patched up Jack Monroe's injured shoulder while keeping a wary eye on the door. The tension in the room was thick, like a storm about to break. "This is unlike anything I've ever seen," Emily muttered, more to herself than anyone else. The coordinates point to locations scattered all over the galaxy, but they're not random. They form some kind of pattern. Daniel entered the lab, his face lined with fatigue. He had been on the bridge since their escape, ensuring the ship was secure and monitoring for any signs of pursuit. "Anything useful?" he asked, leaning against the wall. Emily looked up, her expression serious. "I'm not sure yet. These coordinates might lead us to more of those stations, or worse. But there's something else." She hesitated, glancing at the others before continuing. "Some of the data mentions an entity called the Void Architect. From what I can tell, it's not a person or a machine. It's something bigger, something ancient." Jack winced as Sarah tightened the bandage around his shoulder. "Great, so we're dealing with some cosmic boogeyman now." "It's not just that," Emily said, shaking her head. "The architect seems to be tied to the signals we've been tracking. Whatever it is, it's waking up. And those creatures we fought, they weren't just guards. They're followers, believers." Laura walked in moments later, carrying a tray of rations. She handed them out silently, her movements deliberate. "If these aliens worship this architect thing, then destroying one of their stations probably didn't earn us any friends," she said dryly. "No, it didn't," Daniel agreed. "But we don't have a choice. We need answers, and if this architect is behind the chaos spreading across the galaxy, we have to stop it." The conversation paused as everyone ate, the weight of their situation sinking in. Outside the lab window, the stars twinkled faintly, indifferent to the struggles of the tiny ship passing by. For a moment, it felt like the universe itself was mocking them. Later that evening, Daniel called a meeting in the briefing room. The entire crew gathered, their faces pale with exhaustion but resolute. Emily stood at the front, explaining what she had discovered so far. "The Void Architect isn't just a name," she began. "It's a force, a being that existed long before most species in the galaxy. According to the data, it shaped entire star systems, bending reality to its will. But it disappeared, or went dormant, thousands of years ago. And now it's waking up again." Laura asked, her voice tight. Emily nodded. "That's what the signals suggest. Every time we detect one, it's like a heartbeat, a pulse. The architect is growing stronger, feeding off something. Maybe destruction, maybe fear. I don't know yet." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If the architect truly was returning, it could mean the end of everything. The galaxy, existence itself. No one spoke for a long moment, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "We can't let that happen. Our mission hasn't changed. We find the source of these signals, figure out how to stop the architect, and protect the galaxy, even if it costs us everything." His words hung heavy in the air. Everyone knew the risks. They had already faced death once, and there was no guarantee they would survive whatever came next. But they also knew they couldn't turn back. Humanity, and countless other species, depended on them. Over the next few days, the *Eclipse* followed the first set of coordinates Emily had decoded. The journey took them deeper into uncharted space, farther from Earth than any human ship had ever traveled. The closer they got, the more uneasy the crew became. Strange phenomena began to occur. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation, and crew members reported hearing whispers in empty corridors. Even the stars outside seemed dimmer, as if the light itself was being drained away. When they reached the destination, they found another station, nearly identical to the first. This time, however, it was surrounded by a fleet of alien ships. Their sleek black hulls blended seamlessly with the darkness of space, making them nearly invisible until they powered up their weapons. "They're waiting for us," Laura said grimly, her hands hovering over the controls on the bridge. Daniel clenched his jaw. "They must have tracked us after we escaped the last station. We're outgunned, but we can't run. Not until we know what's inside." The aliens didn't waste time. As soon as the Eclipse approached, they opened fire. Bright beams of energy streaked through space, forcing the smaller human ship to dodge desperately. Explosions rocked the vessel as shields absorbed hit after hit. On the bridge, alarms blared, and smoke filled the air. "Shields are down to 40%, Laura shouted, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "Keep evading," Daniel ordered. "We need to buy Emily more time." In the science lab, Emily worked frantically to analyze the new station. She cross-referenced the incoming sensor readings with the data from the previous station, searching for weaknesses. Her heart raced as she realized the aliens' formation left a small gap near the station's docking bay. If they timed it right, they might be able to slip through. "We can do this," she yelled into the comm system. "There's an opening. Head for the station." Daniel trusted her judgment. With a nod to Laura, he gave the order. The Eclipse surged forward, weaving between blasts of enemy fire. For a terrifying moment, it seemed like they wouldn't make it. Then, with a final burst of speed, they slipped through the gap and latched onto the station. The crew wasted no time. Armed and ready, they moved quickly through the station's corridors, avoiding patrols of alien soldiers. This place was darker, colder, and even more foreboding than the last. The walls pulsed faintly, as if alive, and the air carried a metallic tang that made it hard to breathe. As they ventured deeper, they discovered chambers filled with strange artifacts, objects that seemed to defy the laws of physics. In one room, they found rows of pods, each containing a humanoid figure suspended in liquid. The figures resembled the aliens they had fought, but their eyes were closed, their bodies unmoving. "What is this?" Jack whispered, his voice trembling. "Are they sleeping?" "I don't think so," Emily replied, her tone grim. "These aren't living beings. They're constructs. Tools created by the architect to serve its purpose." Before they could investigate further, the aliens caught up to them. A fierce firefight erupted in the narrow halls, forcing the team to retreat. One by one, they fought their way back to the shuttle bay, their numbers dwindling. When they finally reached the ship, Jack stayed behind to hold off the enemy, buying the others precious seconds to escape. "Go," he yelled, firing wildly as the aliens closed in. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she obeyed, dragging Emily toward the shuttle. Daniel hesitated, torn between staying and leaving, but Laura grabbed his arm and pulled him aboard. As the shuttle launched, the station erupted in flames behind them. Jack's sacrifice had given them a chance to survive, but at a terrible cost. Back aboard the Eclipse, the crew mourned their loss in silence, knowing they still had a long way to go. The Void Architect was closer than ever, and time was running out. The loss of Jack Monroe weighed heavily on the crew of the Eclipse. His sacrifice had saved them, but it also served as a grim reminder of the stakes they were facing. The galaxy was vast and indifferent, and humanity's place in it felt smaller than ever. Yet, even in their grief, the crew knew they couldn't afford to stop. Every moment they delayed brought the Void Architect closer to awakening, and with it, the end of everything. Back on Earth, news of the alien threat spread like wildfire. Governments held emergency meetings, debating how to respond to the growing crisis. Some leaders argued for immediate military mobilization, urging humanity to prepare for war. Others called for caution, warning that provoking the aliens might only accelerate the chaos. Amidst the chaos, General Rachel Dawson emerged as a voice of reason. A seasoned officer with decades of experience, she understood both the dangers of rash decisions and the necessity of action. Rachel stood before a room filled with world leaders, her expression calm but firm. "We can argue about who is to blame later," she said, her voice steady. "Right now, we need to focus on survival. Captain Carter and his crew have shown us what we're up against. If we want to protect our planet and ourselves, we must unite." Her words struck a chord. Slowly, the divisions between nations began to fade. Agreements were signed, resources pooled, and plans drawn up. For the first time in history, humanity came together under one banner. It wasn't perfect. There were still disagreements and tensions. But it was a start. Under Rachel's leadership, a new task force was formed, dedicated to combating the alien threat. At its core was the Eclipse and its crew, now hailed as heroes despite the losses they had suffered. General Dawson personally oversaw the upgrades to the Eclipse, ensuring it was equipped with the latest technology. Scientists worked around the clock, reverse engineering alien artifacts recovered during previous missions. The result was a suite of advanced weapons and defenses unlike anything humanity had ever created. Energy shields capable of withstanding sustained fire, plasma cannons designed to pierce even the toughest armor. And most importantly, a prototype device, the nullifier, that could disrupt the strange energy fields used by the aliens. When Daniel and his crew returned to Earth briefly to oversee the refitting of their ship, they were greeted as saviors. Crowds gathered at the spaceport, cheering and waving flags. But Daniel didn't feel like a hero. He carried the weight of every decision he'd made, every life lost under his command. Laura noticed the change in him, the way his shoulders sagged when he thought no one was looking. She tried to talk to him, but he brushed her off, saying there was too much to do. Emily, on the other hand, threw herself into her work. With access to state-of-the-art labs and equipment, she analyzed every scrap of data they had collected so far. Her breakthrough came late one night when she discovered a flaw in the aliens' technology. Their ships and weapons relied on a specific frequency of energy, a frequency that could be disrupted using the nullifier. "This could level the playing field," she told Daniel excitedly. "If we can deploy it properly, we might stand a chance." As the preparations neared completion, Rachel visited the crew one last time. She found Daniel alone in the hangar, staring at the newly upgraded Eclipse. Its sleek hull gleamed under the artificial lights, bristling with weapons and sensors. "It's quite a sight, isn't it?" she said, stepping beside him. Daniel nodded. "It's impressive, but it doesn't make the job any easier." "No, it doesn't," Rachel admitted. "But you've proven yourself capable of handling impossible jobs. That's why I'm entrusting you with this mission. Humanity is counting on you, Daniel." He turned to face her, his eyes searching hers. "And if we fail, then we'll deal with that when it comes," she replied simply. "For now, all we can do is give it everything we've got." The day of departure arrived quickly. The Eclipse launched from Earth once again, carrying not just its original crew but reinforcements as well. Among them were pilots, engineers, and soldiers trained specifically for this mission. The mood aboard the ship was tense but focused. Everyone knew what was at stake. Their next destination was another set of coordinates decoded by Emily. This time, however, they weren't heading into unknown territory blindly. Armed with the nullifier and a better understanding of their enemy, they approached the location with cautious optimism. As they drew closer, the scanners picked up something massive ahead. A sprawling alien fortress orbiting a dying star. "It's enormous," Laura murmured, studying the readings. "Bigger than anything we've seen before." "And heavily defended," Daniel added, noting the swarm of alien ships patrolling the area. "But we've got the nullifier. Let's see what it can do." The battle that followed was intense. The aliens attacked immediately, their ships maneuvering with precision and speed. But this time, the Eclipse fought back with devastating efficiency. The nullifier activated, sending waves of interference through the enemy fleet. Shields faltered, weapons misfired, and confusion spread among the aliens. Seizing the opportunity, the human forces pressed their advantage, taking out key targets and carving a path toward the fortress. Inside the structure, the crew faced familiar challenges: labyrinthine corridors, deadly traps, and hordes of alien soldiers. But they also found something new: a chamber containing a massive machine humming with power. Emily recognized it instantly. "This is part of the network feeding the Void Architect," she explained. "If we destroy it, we can slow down its awakening." "But won't that draw more attention?" Sarah asked nervously. "Probably," Daniel admitted, "but we don't have a choice." With the help of the reinforcements, they planted explosives throughout the chamber. As they retreated, the machine erupted in a blinding explosion, shaking the entire fortress. Outside, the alien fleet scattered, their coordination shattered without the support of the machine. Back aboard the Eclipse Asterisk, the crew allowed themselves a brief moment of relief. They had struck a significant blow against their enemy, proving that humanity could fight back. But the victory was bittersweet. The Void Architect was still out there, growing stronger with each passing day. As the ship sped away from the crumbling fortress, Daniel looked out at the stars. "We've bought ourselves some time," he said quietly. "But the real fight is just beginning." The crew nodded, their expressions resolute. They had come too far to turn back now. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The victory at the alien fortress gave the crew of the Eclipse Asterisk a much-needed boost in morale, but it also came with a sobering realization. They were still far from ending the threat posed by the Void Architect. Each battle, each destroyed station or machine, only seemed to delay the inevitable. The Architect was growing stronger, its influence spreading like a shadow over the galaxy. The crew knew their efforts were buying time, not solving the problem. As they traveled deeper into uncharted space, following another set of coordinates decoded by Emily, the Eclipse Asterisk encountered something unexpected: an alien fleet unlike any they had faced before. These ships were smaller, faster, and painted in colors that seemed almost rebellious. Instead of attacking, the fleet matched speed with the Eclipse Asterisk, signaling for communication. Daniel hesitated, his instincts telling him to stay cautious. "What do they want?" he asked aloud, staring at the view screen. Emily leaned forward, studying the signals coming from the alien ships. "They're hailing us. It's not hostile, yet." "Could be a trap," Laura said, her hand resting on the weapon controls. "It might also be our best chance to learn more," Daniel replied. He turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel." The face that appeared on the screen was alien but surprisingly expressive. Its large, almond-shaped eyes blinked slowly, and its mouth moved in what looked like a smile. "Humans," it said in halting but understandable speech, "we have been watching you." Daniel exchanged a glance with Laura before responding. "Who are you?" "I am Zoran," the alien replied, "leader of the dissenters. We do not follow the Void Architect. We believe its return will bring ruin, not salvation." The crew listened intently as Zoran explained their situation. The dissenters were a faction of aliens who had once served the Architect's followers, but had grown disillusioned with their leader's blind devotion. They believed the Architect was not a god, but a force of destruction, reshaping the galaxy according to its own chaotic design. Zoran offered to help the humans sabotage key installations, fueling the Architect's resurrection, hoping to weaken it enough to prevent its full awakening. "This could be exactly what we need," Emily whispered to Daniel. "An inside ally." But trust didn't come easily. Laura voiced her concerns during a private meeting in the briefing room. "How do we know this isn't a trick? What if they're leading us into another ambush?" "It's a risk," Daniel admitted. "But right now, we don't have many options. If they're telling the truth, they could give us the edge we need." After much debate, the crew decided to accept Zoran's offer, but cautiously. They agreed to work together on a single mission, targeting an asteroid base that served as a major hub for the Architect's followers. If successful, it would deal a significant blow to their operations. The joint operation required careful planning. Zoran and his team provided detailed maps of the base, highlighting weak points and security measures. In return, the humans shared information about the nullifier and how it could disable the aliens' energy-based defenses. The alliance was uneasy, with both sides keeping a close eye on each other, but there was a shared understanding. Failure was not an option. On the day of the raid, the combined forces approached the asteroid base under cover of darkness. The humans stayed aboard the Eclipse Asterisk, providing support from a safe distance, while Daniel led a small strike team, including Laura, Emily, and several dissenter soldiers, onto the surface. The base loomed ahead, its jagged peaks and glowing conduits making it look like a monstrous creature hunkered down in the void. "This place is crawling with guards," Laura muttered, checking her weapon. "Stay sharp." The team moved quickly, sticking to the shadows as they made their way toward the central control room. Along the way, they encountered patrols of alien soldiers, their glowing eyes scanning the area suspiciously. The dissenters proved invaluable, using their knowledge of enemy tactics to neutralize threats without raising alarms. When they reached the control room, Emily immediately got to work, connecting her device to the base's main terminal. "I need a few minutes," she said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "There's a lot of data here. If I can overload the system, it'll shut down the entire base." "We'll hold them off," Daniel assured her, taking position near the door with his weapon ready. It wasn't long before the alarm sounded. Alien soldiers poured into the corridor, firing relentlessly. The firefight was intense, forcing the team to retreat further into the control room. Laura and the dissenters formed a defensive line, holding back wave after wave of attackers. Bullets ricocheted off walls, and smoke filled the air as explosions rocked the base. "You're running out of time," Daniel shouted to Emily, who was crouched behind a console, sweat dripping from her brow. "Almost done," she replied, her voice strained. Her hands trembled as she entered the final commands. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the hum of machinery grew louder. "Got it." The base began to collapse around them, its systems failing catastrophically. Conduits exploded, sending sparks flying everywhere. "Fall back," Daniel ordered, grabbing Emily's arm and pulling her toward the exit. The retreat was chaotic, with debris raining down and corridors collapsing behind them. One of the dissenter soldiers stayed behind to cover the group, sacrificing himself to ensure their escape. His bravery did not go unnoticed. Daniel nodded solemnly as they ran past his position, knowing they owed him their lives. They barely made it back to the shuttle just as the asteroid base imploded, consumed by its own destruction. From the safety of the Eclipse Asterisk, the crew watched as the massive structure crumbled into dust, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. Back aboard the ship, Zoran contacted them one last time. "You have done well, humans," he said, "but this is only the beginning. The architect grows stronger every day." "We'll keep fighting," Daniel replied firmly. "Together." Though the mission was a success, the cost was high. Lives had been lost, and the scars of battle lingered on everyone's faces. But for the first time, the crew felt a glimmer of hope. With allies like the dissenters and humanity's determination, they might just stand a chance against the Void Architect. The victory at the asteroid base gave the crew of the Eclipse Asterisk a moment to breathe, but it was short-lived. The galaxy still trembled under the weight of the Void Architect's growing power, and every day brought new signs of its influence. Strange phenomena were reported across star systems, planets vanishing without explanation, stars dimming as if their light was being drained away, and entire colonies falling silent overnight. It was as if reality itself was unraveling, piece by piece. On board the Eclipse Asterisk, the mood was heavy. The crew had fought hard, lost friends, and pushed themselves to their limits, yet the end seemed nowhere in sight. Daniel felt the burden of leadership more than ever. He spent hours alone in his quarters, staring out at the endless expanse of space, wondering if they could truly win, or if they were simply delaying the inevitable. Laura noticed the change in him and tried to offer support, but he brushed her off, saying there was too much to think about. Emily, on the other hand, remained focused on the data. She pored over the information recovered from the asteroid base, piecing together fragments of alien knowledge that hinted at the true nature of the Void Architect. What she discovered chilled her to the bone. "It's not just a being," she told Daniel one evening in the science lab. "It's entropy made real, a force that feeds on destruction and chaos. Every battle we fight, every life lost, it only makes it stronger." Daniel frowned, leaning against the table. "So we're playing into its hands." "In a way, yes," Emily admitted. "But we can't stop fighting. If we do, it wins automatically. We have to find another way, a way to weaken it or disrupt its connection to this plane of existence." Her words weighed heavily on everyone. The realization that their efforts might be fueling the very threat they sought to destroy was a bitter pill to swallow. But giving up wasn't an option. Humanity, and countless other species, depended on them. As they traveled to the next set of coordinates, the psychological toll of the mission became evident. Laura struggled with nightmares, waking up in a cold sweat after dreaming of shadowy figures whispering her name. Sarah avoided conversations, retreating into herself as memories of Jack's sacrifice haunted her. Even Daniel, usually stoic and composed, began snapping at his crew over minor mistakes. The constant pressure was wearing them down, and cracks were starting to show. One night, during a rare quiet moment, Daniel sought out Emily in the observation deck. She stood by the window, gazing at the stars as they streaked past. "You've been carrying a lot lately," she said softly, sensing his presence before he spoke. He sighed, joining her at the window. "I just keep thinking about all the people we've lost. Jack, the dissenter who stayed behind, everyone else. Was it worth it? Are we doing the right thing?" Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "There's no easy answer to that. But what I do know is this. Hope exists because people like you refuse to give up. You carry the weight of command because you believe in something bigger than yourself. Don't lose sight of that." Her words resonated with him, offering a small measure of comfort. For the first time in days, Daniel allowed himself to feel a flicker of resolve. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future. When they arrived at the next location, the crew found themselves facing perhaps their greatest challenge yet: a massive black hole surrounded by swirling debris and radiation. At its edge floated a derelict alien vessel, ancient and decaying, emitting faint pulses of energy. Scanners indicated that the ship was linked to the Void Architect, acting as some kind of beacon or relay station. "This has to be important," Emily said, studying the readings. "If we can disable it, we might be able to slow the Architect's awakening." "But getting close to a black hole is suicide," Laura argued. "The gravitational pull will tear us apart." "We don't have a choice," Daniel replied firmly. "We'll use the nullifier to shield us while we dock with the ship. It's risky, but we've faced worse." The operation was fraught with danger. As the Eclipse approached the alien vessel, the gravitational forces grew stronger, pulling at the ship with terrifying intensity. Alarms blared, and the crew worked frantically to stabilize the vessel. Laura's hands flew over the controls, her knuckles white, as she fought to keep them on course. Finally, they managed to dock with the alien ship. The interior was dark and labyrinthine, filled with strange machinery and glowing symbols etched into the walls. The air was thick with static electricity, making their hair stand on end. Every step echoed eerily, as if the ship itself was alive and watching them. Inside, they discovered chambers filled with alien artifacts, objects pulsing with unnatural energy. Emily examined one closely, her eyes widening in awe. "These are fragments of the Architect's essence," she whispered. "They're tied directly to its power source." Destroying the artifacts proved difficult. Each one was protected by intricate force fields that resisted conventional weapons. After several failed attempts, Emily devised a plan to overload the ship's core using the nullifier. If we can channel its energy into the artifacts, we might be able to destabilize them, she explained. The process required precision timing. While Emily worked on the core, Daniel and Laura defended her position, holding off waves of automated drones sent to stop them. The battle was fierce, with explosions rocking the ship and smoke filling the corridors. Just as Emily finished her work, the entire structure began to collapse around them. "We need to go, now," Daniel shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the exit. They barely made it back to the shuttle before the alien ship imploded, consumed by the black hole's immense gravity. From the safety of the Eclipse Asterisk, the crew watched as the beacon disappeared forever, severing one of the architect's connections to the galaxy. Back aboard the ship, the crew gathered in the mess hall, exhausted but alive. Though they had succeeded, the cost was high. The mission had pushed them to their limits, testing their courage, loyalty, and sanity. Yet, amid the chaos, they found strength in each other. As Daniel looked around the room, he realized something important. They weren't just a crew anymore. They were a family, bound together by shared struggles and sacrifices. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to silence the questions haunting the galaxy. The galaxy held its breath as the Eclipse Asterisk prepared for what everyone on board knew would be their final stand. The Void Architect was no longer a distant threat. It was here, its presence felt in every flicker of starlight and every tremor that rippled through space. Its awakening loomed like a storm cloud, dark and inevitable. For weeks, Emily had been analyzing the data they had gathered from previous missions, piecing together fragments of alien knowledge to pinpoint the location of the Architect's core. Finally, she found it, a pulsating nexus hidden within the event horizon of a black hole. "This is it," she said during a tense briefing in the ship's conference room. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly as she tapped commands into the holographic display. A swirling mass of light and shadow appeared before them, representing the heart of the Architect. "It's not just a place. It's a convergence point where reality bends to its will. If we destroy it, we might stop the Architect permanently." "But how do we even get close to something inside a black hole?" Sarah asked, voicing the question everyone was thinking. "The gravitational pull will tear us apart before we're halfway there." "We use the nullifier," Daniel replied, his tone firm. "It's our best shot at surviving the journey. We'll have to time it perfectly, though. One wrong move, and we're done." The plan was simple but perilous. The crew would pilot the Eclipse Asterisk as close to the black hole as possible, using the nullifier to create a protective bubble against the crushing forces. From there, a small strike team led by Daniel would take a shuttle deeper into the event horizon, aiming for the core itself. It was a suicide mission by any measure, but none of them hesitated. They had come too far to turn back now. Preparations were made quickly but carefully. Supplies were checked, weapons calibrated, and systems tested repeatedly. Everyone aboard the Eclipse Asterisk knew the odds, yet there was an unspoken determination in the air. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about protecting the future of the galaxy, no matter the cost. As the ship approached the black hole, the tension reached a breaking point. The massive void dominated the viewscreen, its swirling edges pulling in everything nearby. Stars stretched and distorted around it, creating an eerie, otherworldly sight. Laura sat at the helm, her hands steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "Engaging the nullifier," she announced, flipping the switch that activated the device. A shimmering field enveloped the Eclipse Asterisk, holding back the relentless pull of gravity. Alarms blared intermittently as the ship fought to maintain stability, but the crew worked tirelessly to keep it intact. Slowly, painfully, they inched closer to the abyss. When they reached the designated drop-off point, Daniel turned to his team, Laura, Emily, and 2 volunteers who had insisted on joining him. "This is it," he said quietly. Once we go in, there's no turning back. Are you ready?" They nodded, their expressions resolute. No one spoke. Words felt unnecessary. Each of them understood the weight of what they were about to do. The shuttle detached from the Eclipse and plunged into the black hole, guided by the nullifier's diminishing power. Inside, the environment shifted unnaturally. Time seemed to stretch and compress. Colors blurred together, and sounds echoed eerily. It was as if the universe itself was unraveling around them. "Stay focused," Daniel urged, gripping the controls tightly. "We're almost there." Finally, they reached the core, a pulsating sphere of light and shadow suspended in the void. It radiated an overwhelming sense of wrongness, a force so alien that it defied comprehension. As they stepped out of the shuttle, the team was immediately assaulted by visions, horrific images of their worst fears and deepest regrets projected directly into their minds. Laura saw herself failing to protect her family during a childhood tragedy. Emily relived moments of doubt, questioning whether her work had caused more harm than good. Even Daniel faced memories of past failures, each one amplified until it threatened to break him. But they pushed through, drawing strength from their shared purpose. At the center of the chaos stood the architect itself, a swirling mass of energy that seemed both infinite and empty. It wasn't a being in the traditional sense. It was a force, a concept given form, and it was aware of them. "You cannot stop existence," it intoned, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "I am the end and the beginning. All things return to me." Daniel clenched his jaw, refusing to back down. "Not today," he said, activating the explosive charges they had brought with them. The device hummed to life, emitting a frequency designed to disrupt the architect's connection to reality. The architect responded with fury, unleashing waves of energy that battered the team. Laura shielded Emily as they scrambled to stabilize the device, while Daniel held his ground, firing his weapon to buy them time. The shuttle rocked violently, its systems failing under the strain. "It's working," Emily shouted over the chaos. "Just a few more seconds." With a deafening roar, the device detonated, sending shockwaves through the nexus. The architect let out a soundless scream as its form began to collapse, consumed by the very entropy it embodied. The core imploded, dragging everything around it into oblivion. Outside the black hole, the crew of the Eclipse watched anxiously as the shuttle emerged from the event horizon mere moments before the singularity collapsed entirely. Cheers erupted across the ship, but they were short-lived. The shuttle was damaged, its hull scorched and leaking atmosphere. Rushing to dock it, the crew sprang into action, pulling their teammates aboard. Inside, Daniel lay unconscious, his body battered but alive. Laura cradled him gently, tears streaming down her face. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." The galaxy fell silent as the tremors ceased. Stars shone brighter, planets stabilized, and the oppressive weight of the architect's influence lifted. For the first time in years, peace returned, not perfect, but enough to rebuild. Back on Earth, monuments were erected to honor those who had sacrificed everything. Humanity stood united, ready to forge a new future among the stars. Though questions remained about what truly lay beyond, the tremors had stopped, for now, and in that silence, hope took root once more.